recording begins. Is it beginning? Okay. All right. Let's pretend that let's pretend that we're talking and we're really happy, and we're free of depression. And oh, that was a good point. Hello. Welcome.
Is there entrance music?
There will be entrance music. There will be editing. Everything will be fancy. This part is probably going in to pretend that we're celebrities, the behind the scene. Anyways, hello, welcome to another episode of the BFA podcast. It's BFA podcast number 2, the second of the official, well, actually unofficial. I just took the name, the unofficial BFA podcast, and this time the topic of our discussion is This time the topic of our discussion is SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence in the modern context. And to begin our talk, we shall first introduce my fancy guests. As we can see, we are in different. Our background have defined us in many different ways. The man who's in the forest fire is Edgar Mao. Hello, I'm second year student at UCSB. Why am I saying this? I'm a physics major. That's why I care about SETI. That's why I care about search for extraterrestrial intelligence. It's also kind of related to my research. That's why I gathered 2 of my good friends today to talk about this. One of them is the name deceives us, but his actual name is Owen Lin, the greatest human on Earth. And right now, the human is on a specific part of the Earth. Tengzhui Lin, introduce yourself. Where are you, and why do you care about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence?
Hi, everyone. I'm Owen, and I'm in a beautiful view of Hawaii, I guess. We care about extraterrestrial life because it's inherently fascinating for humans to find things that are beyond our understanding, and extraterrestrial life, I think, is one of them. And as a chemical engineer, I think it is interesting for us to see how extraterrestrial life had chemical properties that will be similar or different to us, and how can we actually engineer to scale up and scale down such properties will be great interest.
Okay, fantastic. And by the way, I reckon that's UCSB campus, low-key flex. Is that how people say it now? Is that the fancy way of saying things? Low-key? All right. And then last but not least, we have yet again with us the mysterious man himself. Some say he have never visited China. Some say the previous person said whatever the previous person said was all BS. We have Mr. Ben Trey. Who are you? Why are you here? And what interests you about SETI?
First off, it's Professor Trey, tough guy.
Okay, good for you.
All right, I'm a adjunct physics professor. In terms of search for extraterrestrial life, why is that important? Well, essentially, it's just like when you go across the ocean and discover a new culture. There's only things that you can gain from each other. There's only new things that you can learn from each other. And hopefully everyone benefits. But I guess in the course of humanity, that has never been the case. Anywho, I think one of the interesting things about extraterrestrial life is that we say it has to be carbon-based. But I think that there's also other options out there where the chemistry does work out. I think silicon-based is one of them. But I remember reading about one time saying something almost like it was something that was poisonous, like a cyanide-based life form or something. Yeah, so these are a lot of different, new chemicals that, if there's anything that we waste a lot of time as humans, it's understanding chemical engineering. It's always better to let nature do it for us and we go and look at what happened. Easier to observe, harder to make. So yeah, extraterrestrial life is looking, at benefiting everyone, except for people who are on crystal clear blue beaches or forest fires.
Indeed, we are the official extraterrestrial life haters. Anyways, okay. First of all, it's good to have you guys here. For the viewers' information, these two are my friends all the way from high school. Professor Ben Trey was my high school physics teacher, and now he has gone to somewhere better than my high school. But yeah, all of our opinions here are only our own opinions, with our limited knowledge from different fields. But at the same time, we are here because we are truly interested about this subject, and we care about what's happening to this subject nowadays in our public narrative, in our modern culture. So to begin our discussion, I first of all want to unlike most conventional talks about this sort of subject, I want to first steer us toward the public narrative regarding the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The reason why I want to do this is I decided on this project at the beginning of this quarter, which was about 1 or 2 months ago. But within the several weeks, there is a very interesting current event that captured a lot of people's attention. I don't know about that. People in the academia, but I know it definitely captured people like the public figures like Joe Rogan's attention, which is I think one of the department, I don't know, some intelligence department in the United States government is going to release a footage of the infamous Tic Tac that was recorded by the U.S. Navy sometime in the previous century, where they saw this thing, moving in a weird way. I don't really want to share the I can't actually share the footage due to copyright reasons. But at the same time, it is what it is. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but the reason why I brought this up is because looking at these public discussions, looking at these discussions about Tic Tac, and the pilot steps up and talk about how abnormal it is, started to make me wonder even more. I mean, first of all, it really made me feel fortunate that I selected this topic, and we get to talk about it, and now it's actually a part of current event. But also, this really brought me this really gave me a chance to closely examine the current narratives that are relevant to the SETI effort, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Because normally when we talk about SETI, when we talk about life in another world or so on, we tend to give it a very mysterious, very fictional outlook, and we talk about UFO, all these crazy stuff. But as a physics student and as a undergraduate researcher who my current research has a direct connection with the SETI effort, I always feel like there is something missing between the connection of the idea of extraterrestrial life, extraterrestrial intelligence in the mind of the academia versus in the mind of the public. And I'm sure you guys have experienced both sides of the coin. What are your guys' first of all, I guess the question here is, first of all, what exactly do you guys think is the when we talk about SETI, when we talk about search for extraterrestrial life, what exactly is this problem? Like, in what scope should this problem be? Is it something that can be effectively discussed by the public? If so, how? Perhaps we can start with the extremely blurry Owen Lin.
Okay. So I actually haven't heard of SETI before, so I will have my own limited knowledge, like the general public. So I would guess that the search for extraterrestrial life, it should be scientific, but I'm not sure, because the science can be manipulated to intrigue public attention and then doing misfortune stuff. And to my perspective, it sounds like that scientists could use big whatever telescope to observe the outside universe, to see what kind of new observations can be made to the universe and what inferences can we make about the existence or the possibility of the existence of extraterrestrial life. But there is the danger of making inferences that does not actually have solid connections, that a correlation does not actually means causation. So it is important to be critical about the result of the observations. And when that observation is translating to correlations, we have to be sure that that doesn't actually means that there is a causation. We have to understand that there's possibility, but not actually real until we actually see them.
Yeah, and the idea of actually, the quote unquote actually seeing them, I would argue that it should be the actually seeing in a very strictly scientific context, not, Bob said something and Bob never lies, not like that. What do you think, Professor?
So I think your question was, is this a topic that can be understood by the general public? And I think what happens is, like, when you talk to the general public, everyone in their own mind needs to be respected and held with some level of respect. And sometimes that leads to inappropriate hubris. And when you see something like this, people are always like, those scientists, they don't know everything. I'm on the same field as them. And I think especially with physics, it's not really an open book. I mean, they're closing down. There's, under 10 questions that, if you had someone and they could get absolute answers to these 10 questions, it's over. So when you start looking at like that, we're looking at strong restrictions on how exactly the universe can communicate or travel great distances. And then there's always kind of immediately, as soon as someone is trying to get aliens to this planet, they immediately say well, what about that one thing we don't understand? And it's very unlikely that those few things we don't understand are going to lead to very quick travel across the universe or communication across the universe. So that's the whole thing about the general public, is that if you ask someone from the general public, they're going to immediately ignore the very fundamental science, verified, thousands of times, to extreme experimental accuracy, and they're going to say sometimes scientists are wrong. It's like, well, there are always surprises in science, but that's not one that I think anyone expects to see. Secondly, I think that in terms of looking for intelligent life, Humans think they have a very good understanding about what is natural. So they think what is natural is some continuous spectrum. They think it's not discrete. So for instance, one of the alien things on Earth was the big bloop. Does anyone know about the big bloop?
Shameful to say no.
Oh, and big bloop?
Nope.
Okay, so in the ocean, they heard like every so many minutes, just like it sounded metallic. They said it sounded metallic, and it was just a bloop. So they would hear this very loud thing, and they kind of knew where it was, but they didn't know. And they were like, well, this is clearly some underwater people trying to contact us. So again, this is kind of humans not understanding what is natural. It turns out the big bloop, pretty good explanation on it. Something to do with glaciers or something moving. And they were able to replicate that metallic-y, periodic, very stable period sound. Anyways, so I think that's one thing that when you get the general public, they, kind of underestimate, the knowledge that is known, try to replace it with their own theories, and also don't really have an understanding about what is naturally occurring, such as things that have like, really good periods, things that are repeating, things that seem, otherworldly, that are just, the natural world playing out. So that's my fault with that, or that's my problem with asking the general public about things like this.
Yeah, I think you bring up I think you bring up a central point in this sort of conflict, which is whenever this sort of stuff, whenever this sort of exciting but at the same time very physics or astrophysics inclined questions get brought up into the public, there seems to be immediately some sort of battle, some sort of discrepancy between the methods that are used, the methods of thinking that are used by the academia and the general public. I think I don't know enough about the big bloop.
It's a bloop, Edgar.
Okay. For all we know, you may have made that up. But
how dare you?
but my point is, I mean, bring up any sort of like this sort of example is always a debate between haven't science always been wrong? Like why can't this be the next thing? And in a sense, like this leads to a bit of a this really brings out the difference in the way of thinking between the general public and people who deal with physics, especially. I think it was a comedian. I think it was Norm Macdonald, who in one of his acts claims that aren't science always wrong? And in a way, first of all, the man is hilarious. I think he's one of the funniest men ever, and I just keep on quoting him for no reason. But at the same time, I think what he said in a very important way reflects a lot what a lot of people feel about science. At face value, it may seem like yes, science has always been wrong because it seems like Aristotle or are they? I guess in a way they're scientists, but
yes,
Newtonian physics. There's always something wrong. But for someone without a scientific background, it may seem like Einstein disputed Newton, so on, blah blah. But for anyone with any sort of good science training, they would realize that in an important sense, science is not always wrong. It seems like, at least for me, it feels like it's always right, because Newtonian physics provided the best possible description of nature based on, all the based on the scientific method, based on their ability to measure, to detect the universe to their best extent. And yes, there are problems in the classical Newtonian physics, and those problems were solved to the best of our extent based on the scientific method by quantum physics, general relativity, and so on. And I feel like it's discrepancies that are like that provided this public with this narrative that people don't seem to like. It almost seems like it's hard for people to believe in science because of this, but at the same time, the people who know science believe in science because of precisely this. And yeah, that sort of brings me to another point that we can that I want to discuss, which is the scientific method, the scientific way of thinking made it impossible for physicists or scientists to say things like, oh, there's definitely no aliens. Oh, there's definitely is aliens. Given the current situation of search for given the current SETI effort situation, given the current ambiguity of whether if there is intelligence other than ourselves, when we talk about aliens, when we talk about extraterrestrial intelligence, in the layman's term, what do you think we are actually talking about? How would you describe the problem of extraterrestrial intelligence without too much physics or too much professionalism?
Yeah, no professionalism, Owen.
The way ism, no. So many isms. Well, I think the public, without professionalism and accurate scientific description, the public cares the most interesting part of extraterrestrial life. For example, what do they eat? Do they sleep? Where are they from? How do they reproduce? Or do they even reproduce? And
always the reproduction talk.
And I think a large amount of these topics is also facilitated by the media. I think there's a huge gap between the accurate scientific description and the public opinions, is that the public won't actually read scientific literatures, and the media actually don't really read into scientific literatures. And two, so there's a discrepancy between the knowledge that scientists have or the information that they have with the general public. And I think one purpose of the media is to translate that knowledge from highly technical language to layman's language. But in the translation process, I think many discrepancy can occur, and that's really a concern when there's misinformation in the translation stage and the public is open to interpretation of those misinformation. And another thing is that because the media is kind of interest-driven or capital-driven, so they care about money, so they will actually target to what the public is most interested. For example, just as I said, what do they eat? What do they even reproduce? Where they're from? And those kind of biases in the content that they're making is also driving the public into a more extreme extent of not believing science or having unscientific opinions on this topic.
And I think it works both ways, though. I mean, doesn't like also, the public interest, doesn't that feed back into the scientific process about like what direction the research is going?
Yeah, people get funded because of those things. Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. I think when you mentioned that, the first thing I thought about was how like certain things are so hard to get funded. Like I don't understand why our like there's always these specific branches of physics that are always so poor. Like solid like what's a good example here? Like
K-12 education.
like material science, they're always rich. Yeah, exactly. Like K-12 education, they're always extremely poor, and people who can make very, very fast computer chips, those people are the most popular. But anyways, let's not using I guess let's not get bogged down on this this. You know who I borrowed this from, right? Anyways, I was quoting Jeremy Clarkson, but that's just me watching too much TV. But what I want to say here is instead of talking about this, I think whenever we talk about this, we tend to get pulled into this discussion about like, how does the science community work? Does it actually work? What is this whole funding situation? Why is it so hard to get research positions? Blah blah.
But hold on, isn't this exactly what SETI is though? SETI is like the misapplication of funds for like public interest. They're like, let's look for aliens.
That's the thing, right? That's the thing. People like Carl Sagan and Frank Drake, they were so charismatic, and now we have, but look, I'm not trying to defend what I'm researching here, but I do think in a weird way, things like SETI Institute and so on, yes, in a weird way, it may get associated with tinfoil hat and so on. But what's reassuring for me is there's always professional people, who deal with sort of as long as there's professional physicists who deals with this sort of thing, as long as the discussion the discussion around this topic has a professional was in a professional context, I often feel like it can be beneficial in many ways. But yes, in a weird way, I do find it unsettling that, or maybe it's because I don't know about this topic well enough. But when I was researching for this podcast, I stumbled upon a small subject of a small division of astrophysics called astrobiology.
Oh yeah.
And there's even like NASA pages about it and stuff. But I guess for just a throwaway question, what do you guys think of just even the term of astrobiology? And by your expression, Professor Ben, I know you probably heard of this before.
Yeah. I remember when I was in high school, I was always reading books about SETI, but more about like, astrobiology. And I always thought it was funny they never called it theoretical astrobiology. So, well, I guess I don't know, what would that mean? Like elements we don't have. Anyways, I guess the question I always asked again is, we create everything in our own image, even like our religion and stuff. So when we create aliens, we're like, there's the bilateral symmetry. But I was always wondering, walk upright, so on, so on and so forth. But I always wondered, like, is bilateral symmetry a necessity? Because it is for depth perception, and it is the simplest way to create depth perception. Now, after that, it also creates redundancy in most structures. So for instance, you could have half of your brain removed and you're still fine for some reason. It takes you a couple days to wake back up. I shouldn't say not everyone is fine. But they do say, or even like if you have seizures, they'll take out parts of your brain, more than 50%. You're fine. So anyway, you lose one arm, you're still fine. And bilateral symmetry is the shortest way to create redundancy, and would naturally come from trying to create depth perception in like predatory species. So that's my question: is like, what exactly would it look like? When we found this, a bilateral symmetry seems like it's a given, but then also we see a lot of things on our Earth that went like eightfold symmetry, right? I think is that the way of the Buddha? Is the way of the Buddha eightfold? I don't know. Anyways, so we see like spiders or octopus or squids all have 8 arms. They went eightfold symmetry, but still also have bilateral symmetry. So anyways, that's what I think about this astrobiology. I think there are some things that can be, determined with, certain ranges of certainty about how things in a naturally competing system would arise. And I think also, even though we are seeded with some DNA, we see a separation between some environments that also create like similar things happening again and again. For instance, big cats exist and have similar body patterns to be, conspicuous in the shadows in many places throughout, the world, even though that they're not connected. So, what do they call that in biology? Owen would know. In biology, where like 2 species evolve in the same way, it would be like that, but like interplanetary.
I have no idea. That's like 9th grade topics.
Whatever. I'm looking this up.
Okay. Well, while he is looking that up, I guess a follow-up question for Owen would be: I think you might actually I think you might have more knowledge about this than both of us. People always say, like, especially, before I ask the question, I just want to say, for example,
it's convergent evolution. Convergent evolution. I did not make this up.
Okay. The man who doesn't make up things. I feel like something like feels like astrobiology, given our current development of astrophysics. I always feel like certain fields like this are only worth like maybe like 3 or 4 good papers, and that's pretty much it. Anything else are like like a waste of fun. But I think the idea of astrobiology is actually just established by like 4 or 5 papers, because after a bunch of research there weren't any actual astrobiology stuff, like, because there's not much to study about. But what I do want to ask is, this sort of brings us to the I think a big part of the reason why subjects like this exist, or a big part of what something like astrobiology would talk about, which is, we have a good idea of the basic constituents of life on Earth. But when we talk about the definition of life in general, or definition of intelligence in general, it's always blurry. It's first of all, we don't really have a good idea of is something like what you said, whatever cyanide based life form, is that life, and so on. As a person who has interest and mastery in biology, Owen, do you hold a do you have intuition toward how would one define life or intelligence?
I think the concept of astrobiology is kind of shaky, because the foundations is, we could say it's scientific, because we know what life forms look like and what physical laws behave on Earth, but we don't know if that holds true also for extraterrestrial stuff. So I think the foundation could be scientific, but the work that we're keep building on in that field, I think it will be more accurately characterized as humanity, because
Yeah.
the observations we made on Earth is scientific, but we don't know what else we have. So we have to resort to our creativity. And creativity is limited by our knowledge. And that, I think, is what makes this thing kind of shaky. And your question was how to
Do you have intuitions about like a definition of life that is more general than carbon-based? Like, you know.
That would be interesting. Well, I think we haven't even really figured out how life emerged on Earth like a long time ago. We have kind of a blurry idea of how the like original soup of everything that makes things up, like because of time, but the knowledge wasn't like really agreed upon. The great, like everyone says yes about that. So
Well, hold on. I think everyone agrees on everything originated from the old dirty soup.
Oh yes,
yeah,
the
why
old
not?
dirty
Why not?
soup. This is an inside joke about someone who loves soup, very dirty and extremely old. Okay.
Yeah, maybe the soup back there. Look at the soup coming.
Oh yeah, that's soup behind you, huh? But
So
yeah,
wait, Owen, can't you get the like central amino acids from just like atmosphere, carbon, and electricity?
I'm not sure. I have no idea.
Okay, Owen is being accused of being a biologist.
You could try. Do experiment yourself. Publish papers, man.
No, I think this was like a famous experiment. Like someone like took an aquarium and they put in atmosphere and like dirt, and then periodically they added electricity from like a lightning thing. And I think that was like a famous experiment that they got like amino acids in the end.
Ooh. Oh,
and
man.
that comes to the question to how amino acids like assemble to like life.
To
And
cells.
because there are four main macromolecules that life action or organisms that depend on. We have carbohydrate, we have proteins, we have nucleic acid, and we have one important stuff that I'm missing. What is that?
I'm the least biology savvy one here.
I should really brush up on my basic biology, but there's four kind of main things, and we only say that we know that if we only know that amino acid can be made by like lightnings and stuff, there comes to the question of how those things come together and form life, and how the DNA or RNA are used to be the hereditary information or hereditary compounds that let us pass down our gene. That would be also an interesting question, and that's only like Earth-based, and how that could extend to like extraterrestrial life would be even more beyond our imagination and thus creativity, I think.
Yeah.
So wait. Owen. All right. Okay. The Miller-Urey experiment. I don't know how to say his name. I'm going to go with Urey. I'm sure he'll enjoy that. 1952. They took, so they sealed
You are allowed to share screen.
I will not share my screen. I will read this from the internet.
Okay.
All right. So they simulated early Earth. I'm looking in here. They have some boiling water. So they have water vapor. They have electricity coming from a spark. They have some other things here. Hydrogen gas. There's some other stuff over here. There's some gases I'm not familiar with. And if I told them to, I'd probably embarrass myself. Anyways, it says here that they made over 20 amino acids from like non-organic material that was present in early Earth. So there you go.
Oh, well. I did not foresee that a discussion about. Well, I guess in a very important way, it is a part of the discussion of SETI, because before intelligence, we always assume there would exist life, you know, and I find that. By the way, I think it may be a bit too late to mention this, but accompanying this podcast. It's too late when I say it's too late.
Podcast shocker. Okay.
But accompanying this podcast, there will be an information page about topics that we talked about and how ignorant we are, because conversations, they always go all over the place, and sometimes we misrepresent certain things. Sometimes we don't remember certain things, and sometimes we just read off the internet.
I'd like to state that everything I have said today is completely in a comical sense and all made up. I am not standing behind any of this professionally.
We should podiums. That's a product we can stand behind. But what I'm trying to say is, accompanying this podcast in an effort to combat the exponential growth of misinformation on the internet, I will be accompanying this podcast with a brief information page that fact checks certain things that some of us are trying to claim here. But
wait, anyways, one thing about SETI though. Okay, so we're looking in the sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a majority of the funding is looking in the sky.
Yes.
And if anything, we have not considered that animals communicate to each other outside of pheromones. We have not considered that until maybe the last 30 years. So I know in my lifetime, they've discovered bumblebees talk to each other. Before then, they thought they were too stupid. In my lifetime, they have discovered that dolphins talk to each other. I shouldn't say that. I think they had kind of an intuition that dolphins talk, or whales, but nowhere near uncovering anything. So yeah, the whole idea of like something trying to communicate with us and us nailing it on the first attempt, probably unlikely.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen a little bee buzz around, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know that as it's doing
dance.
It's talking to you. We're always like, oh, look at this thing. It's confused. I'm so smart. No, it's going around. It's talking to you. And then it's telling you where the nectar is, or where the sun is, or where its hive is, or where water is. It's telling you that stuff, and we don't understand. So,
yeah, I do think the issue, or the ultimate challenge of something like SETI is what you are saying here. Is the I don't know if that's the right way. Is the epistemology? Is that even the right way to say it? It's a way we communicate. It's like you said, it would be fundamentally different. There's no proof of that. We can't just say that what we value, or what we perceive as the quote unquote universal knowledge, is what another civilization or another intelligence that is completely outside of our context would believe. Connecting to what we talked about last podcast, we were talking about how people have made attempts to communicate with aliens, have sent signals into the universe. A lot of the things that we talked about, I think there was something about describing pi, or like describing the distance between, I think it was a helium, like between helium nuclei or something. Things like this. There's just whatever modern physics thinks as fundamental. I don't think there is a definitive way of proving it being fundamental for all intelligence. And it could be that our effort of sending signals, sending radio waves, it could be that these could be interpreted just like a bee's dance. And in a weird way, there's something poetic about that, but there's also something something extremely pessimistic about that, which I profoundly enjoy.
Wait, I have a question.
Mhm.
How many senses are there for humans?
Okay, now I feel like this is a trick question.
It is.
It's
I
a
don't
great
know.
biology question.
Oh, and
So
how many senses are there?
unscientific. As many as you want. It's
Yeah,
all
that's
stored here in the brain.
actually the truth. So, but I mean, like our scientific method is like the extension of like the five, right?
Mhm.
And I don't know what this looks like outside of my culture, but there's like sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and then even like there's a gas vapor. Like, okay, so we're trying to make smell better. We're looking out in the universe. Let's look for colors that we can't see, right? You know, the bloop. We're listening. Well, here's a question: if you're in a car, can you tell when the person starts moving?
Are you
Are you
trying
physicsing
to
us?
drag special relativity into this?
No, but think about it, right? Like, if I close your eyes, I plug your nose, you're not touching anything, you can't hear anything. You still know when the car's accelerating.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah,
a
a sense of
liquid
balance in our
in your
ear.
inner ear.
Hmm.
There's a liquid in your inner ear that tells you when you're accelerating. And because acceleration, what it was probably described maybe 300 years ago, 400 years ago, not really considered one of the five fundamental senses.
Hmm.
But as soon as we started looking for accelerations, that's the like it's not LIGOS. It might be LIGOS. It's the telescope that looks for space-time bending due to general relativity.
I think that is Legos. Maybe, I don't know. Go ahead.
It's called something, but anyways, that's the same sense that's in our inner ear.
Oh.
So again, talking about like us not even being able to recognize when someone would be talking to us. Yeah. So we're like five senses. We have to see it, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, what if they're sending us like, you know, through accelerations?
Hmm. Okay. I think I'm really glad that we got to this point where our discussion has purely become a discussion of how stupid we are, because because I feel like in a people always the people, the sort of people who act revolutionary, sort of people who act as if they know a lot, always tend to tell you a lot. But I mean, no matter what field you are in, like humanity or physics, I feel like there's always the pattern that the people who truly knows, the people who truly understands, always realizes how little they understand first. And whenever we put uh, a logical and sensible lens toward issues such as SETI, we always end up realizing uh, the in a pessimistic way how little we know, but in another way, I think we always end up having a good providing ourselves with a good sense of where science is, where astrophysics is, and that sort of brings me to our closing and winding down question. We talked a lot about um, intelligence, life, how it would form, how it would what we imagined it would be, what are some perhaps important constituents, but let's bring our attention back to the human society here. A lot of humanities a lot of humanities scholars. Well, I'm not a humanities scholar, so maybe I'm not. I'm not credible in saying a lot of, but some humanities scholars, for example, my father, who is a philosophy professor, but but would a lot of people enjoy themselves in discussing the philosophical meaning behind behind believing, or even maybe at some point in the future, detecting extraterrestrial intelligence or extraterrestrial life. What does it mean for the human race? How does it change the way we perceive life? And I want to, although none of us are actually, I don't think we are the humanity types, but I do want to bring us to try to bring our ideas into this discussion. What is there a meaning behind detecting extraterrestrial life? How does it change us? And to give this really wide question sort of a constraint. Do you guys know the Fermi paradox? I'm sure Ben J. Trey knows. I think for people at home, for people who don't know, the Fermi paradox is essentially a question. Is essentially asking if the universe, since the universe is so large, there's so many possibility of life and intelligence existing. Why haven't we seen it yet? And that often leads to discussions about, if we see it, that means we are if we see a lot of intelligent life, or if we see a lot of life in the universe, that may mean that we haven't reached a certain level of development, and that means impending doom and so on. I'm not being coherent here, but in the context of such questions, there's so many people who have so many interesting thoughts about things like this. What do you find interesting about the effort in SETI and thoughts like Fermi paradox or Drake equation, all that crazy stuff? The biologist, the chemist, I would say, the despicable
everything
chemist.
To us.
Oh yes.
Maybe humans aren't intelligent enough to detect intelligent life. Just maybe.
Oh man, look at Owen. No faith in humans.
No faith. I love that.
How we're handling our own affairs, like countries fighting and stuff, can't even organize our own thoughts.
Man, Owen, are you doing okay over there?
Are you doing okay on the beautiful beach of Santa Barbara?
It's great here. It's great.
We need an intervention.
Need more fire.
What do you think, old man?
I think, I think everything is going backwards. So
how so?
We're looking to expand out in the universe. We're looking to see what's in the universe, and we are currently, on a planet that's in like, a mass extinction event. So there was this concept. I don't know if they still have it, but when I was a kid, there was this concept called bionauts. The idea was that you would put people inside a closed container, and you would see just exactly how long they can survive. Which is a lot more sensible, than saying, hey, let's fire off to another planet, right? It would be much more sensible to see, like, given everything continuing just the way it is it possible to close off an environment and save, humanity, which I guess we think is important. So like there's all this effort, like just think about like how much time and energy people are using to shoot to Mars.
Yeah.
When you could just dig down, find a, source of thermal energy, and then you're not on a time scale of a couple centuries. You're just like, we'll do this until we can figure out how to fix it. Anyways, so that's what I think about this whole Fermi equation. It's almost like looking backwards. Like, let's start cataloging everything that's here. Let's make everything here sustainable. Let's make sure that we can keep this the way it is and essentially undo everything we've done.
Yeah. Whenever we talk about topics like SETI, I always feel like, I think this is my personal opinion, but I always feel like this sort of extraterrestrial intelligence talk has a very 20th century tone to it, because a lot of the discussions, a lot of the opinions, or even more, a lot of the philosophies centering the topic of SETI seems to have been established by people like Carl Sagan and Frank Drake in the previous century. And in many ways, the pioneering sort of, the rapidly evolving ideas surrounding extraterrestrial intelligence seem to have come to a halt, given our lack of the new discoveries about them. But I think in a weird way, ideas or topics surrounding SETI has transitioned into the actual philosophy, the actual talk of SETI itself has been outdated in a very central way. Like Carl Sagan or even people like Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't feel that modern, doesn't feel that contemporary anymore. In a way, I feel like our interest in extraterrestrial intelligence seem to have died down in the literal sense, in the popular culture sense, but the new philosophy, the new way of thinking surrounding the extraterrestrial detection and imaginations about extraterrestrial intelligence seem to have transitioned into fields like modern, astrophysics, like exoplanet studies, or what I'm doing. We are using our latest effort. Our group is the Search for Directed Intelligence group. Is using machine learning tools to detect transients in general sky surveys, and we're building our own telescopes to have and data pipelines to basically, to detect transients and to do our own studies. But anyways, I'm not trying to plug here because we don't really. I mean, we have our fundings, but
I am gonna plug mine. How dare you?
Okay. But let me finish my point. But what I'm trying to say is, efforts like these used to be almost impossible for a modern science, because there's just we can't really study exoplanets. We don't really have a good idea of how to handle all these huge amount of data from sky surveys, but now we do, and in a very important way now, using these new terms, using these new techniques, we seem to be able to discuss topics like extraterrestrial intelligence, extraterrestrial life, with more sensible ideas, with better understanding, even though we are not discussing precisely that, but discussion about exoplanets, discussion about how to process sky survey data, those are important steps. And I think those are, in a very important way, the actual progress that are made for the SETI effort. And your plug?
Oh, my plug? No. My plug is I'm making an AI radio station. WKSLG K Sludge. Should be out soon. Anyways, yeah. I found something today. I need to go get it. It's gonna take me 1 minute. I want to show you something, reminding you of your past, of your last century.
Oh, what's gonna happen? Owen Lin. Let's keep the show going. Oh, look at him. He has entered another. Oh, whatever that is. Okay.
Look at Owen keeping his mastery of chemistry secrets. All right.
What is going on? Ooh. All right, now I
can't see it.
Oh, Wandering Earth? Is that? Oh.
There it is. Oh.
Yes. The Wandering Earth. For people who don't know what Wandering Earth is a novel written by a renowned Chinese science fiction author Liu Cixin, and it's about, well, let's not do spoilers, but it's a good novel.
I can't even tell you what it's about. I can't even analyze the title.
Okay, yeah, the Earth is wandering, but your point?
Oh, I don't know. You gave that to me like 100 years ago.
I didn't give that to you. I wouldn't
yes, you
give
did.
you. I give you something else. I think I gave you the heavy, the extremely heavy and gory Chinese folk novel.
Hold on.
And he pulls it out.
Yes, that's what I got you. That's the book that I got you.
What a dirty book.
Look. About that, actually, I don't think first of all, I really don't think there's that many science fiction books that I actually like. Although I did read a lot of them, I like maybe the several really fundamental ones like Asimov's Foundation, or Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy are good. But I think the thing about science fiction, and that really that in a weird way also connects to this discussion that we had. Things like science fiction, when they are good, when science fiction topics are good, they are inherently a human story. We no matter what we do, we can't escape the human story. Like, for example, the shirt I'm wearing. Look at this.
Whoa.
Do you recognize this? 2001 Space Odyssey. I would say that's one of the better science fiction stories that we have.
Where did you get this shirt?
Online. I don't know. I'm that awesome. I'm that awesome.
Wait. Hold on. This ties into SETI. Okay.
What?
The monolith, right? The monolith.
Yeah.
Right?
The monolith that's rectangle.
Okay. So the base is 1. Okay, 1 by 4, and the height is 9 units. 1 by 4 by 9. So again, in the book 2001: A Space Odyssey, they say the dimensions of this were communicating something. Do you know what they were communicating?
I mean, it sounds like a series of not so natural numbers. I don't know.
It is an unnatural series, right? Like, I guess not naturally occurring. First off, it has 90-degree edges. So whenever you see 90-degree edges, you're either looking at, crystalline substances or someone particularly manipulating nature.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the 1 by 4 by 9, that's a sequence of, wait, where's Owen? Owen, what's that sequence?
What? 1 by 4 by 9?
1 by 4 by, don't break my heart.
What sequence?
Okay, I have some ideas.
Go ahead, Edgar.
Like n squared?
It is n squared.
Mm-hmm.
And what the monoliths were trying to tell them is these are local spots where you can go into other dimensions.
Ooh.
So 1 by 4 by 9 by 16. And in the movie, the one astronaut flies over it and he says, "I see stars," meaning that an extra spatial dimension has opened, and now he can see the entire universe right next to him because it's right next to him in that spatial dimension. Anywho, yeah, so just again, they're sending a very clear message in this rock, and we still miss it. So,
yeah, and that really ties into the point that I was trying to make, which is a lot of the good science fictions are human stories. Like I think I would say almost 90% of what Liu Cixin writes, like the famous Chinese author, he also wrote the famous novel The Three Body Problem. Um, all of these novels, usually they are good because they are very humane stories. They are just good stories inherently. I mean, you put it in whatever context, it's always, there's always an element of I would say the science here, that in a lot of science fiction, is just a flavor. But I think there's something special about stories like 2001: Space Odyssey, where yes, it's in a very important way a very humane story, but at the same time it provides so much meaning that is outside of the conventional, storytelling. It provides informations that are interesting. That's why I like something like Interstellar. It's such a great human story, but at the same time, it's so unsensible and so like some of the things that they did, some of the story devices are so unnatural. It makes you realize it's a physics story. It's a story. It's a science fiction that has a scientific heart, not a scientific flavor, and that sort of brings us full circle here. We began our discussion about the narrative surrounding extraterrestrial intelligence. The popular narrative, and we end with our discussion about popular novels, popular movies, um, about the imaginations of extraterrestrial life and extraterrestrial intelligence. What I want to say here is we are able to see, it's not that hard to see the good discussions, the good public discourse on this sort of issue, and the less productive ones. And it's always interesting to have a discussion like this, just or to just take certain ideas as a part of a fun way to spend our time. But it's also but there are also so many people who spend their life's effort on issues surrounding SETI, surrounding astrophysics in their own ways. I don't think we should easily dismiss the public's attempt at understanding things like UFO or extraterrestrial intelligence. But I think what we should take a second look at is the public discourses that have their own agenda, that uses that uses discussions about extraterrestrial intelligence and so on to fulfill their own stories. I find that not as interesting as an inquiry and just random talks that are genuine. And I think in a very perhaps insignificant way, we sort of achieved some of that today. And yeah, I'm thankful for you guys. And lastly, to end on a high note, we were not fizzing out. I shall provide you with one last question. Oh, actually, I shall provide you with two final questions. First of all, after this talk, what's your new impression, or did this talk in any way change your perception about SETI? If so, how? If not, why? I guess. Let's start with the biologist and chemist and all-around best person in the world.
Sure. Well, I think.
Sure. What a great answer.
Yeah, maybe. Well, just let SETI do its job.
Leave SETI alone.
Yeah, I guess I would say just let astrophysics do its job, and eventually we'll be able to look at SETI as a bigger field. Maybe, I don't know. What about you, old man?
Well, I guess I never considered SETI is probably like the most public pointed research that's being done, right? Like at CERN, they're like, how would the average man go about looking for the Higgs boson?
Yeah.
And SETI is, and I think it also is tying me back to now we're talking about sci-fi movies. And it's like, man, this is becoming even more like, what does the average man think about SETI?
Yeah.
But you said something interesting about like the humanity in a sci-fi story. So last week I was watching this movie called Space Truckers. And the idea is that a guy has a truck and it's like miles long and he's in space and he's moving pigs. Not even space pigs, just pigs. It's one of the worst movies ever made. And one of the criticisms about it is they said, never make a sci-fi movie in space unless space is necessary. And I think that's what these stories are. These stories are a human story and they take place in space out of necessity. Like you need space to tell this story. And that's what this feels like to me, this research, is that we are doing research and then like out of necessity, we're combining like the average human, the humanity of it, and we're trying to combine space, the final frontier, and we're just smashing it together in a very haphazardly way.
Yeah.
Like Space Truckers.
Like Space Truckers. According to Professor Ben, one of the worst movies ever made. Anyways, yeah, I would agree with both of you in a lot of your points. And in addition to that, I would say that a discussion like this is what I wish, you know, a public discourse about this could be like, you know, a bunch of professional or more or less people who respect the scientific method and have some basic knowledge in scientific thinking. You know, I think I would say I would say a lot more people are capable of doing this than the public discourse seem to display. To be honest, I do have a positive outlook on the influence and the impact of such discussions, even though sometimes they can go, you know, they can run astray and we start talking about space truckers. But yes. What
that
you
was
said
on
is one
point.
of the...
That was a topic that needed to be discussed.
Okay, space truckers. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us in yet another random episode of the BFA podcast. And to finish BFA podcast, we have our conventional question, our traditional question. First of all, Ben J. Trey, what is BFA?
What is BFA? I have no idea.
Hey, we did this last time. What is BFA? There's no actual answer.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Big. Yeah, I don't know what the F word would be for. Some people do. Is there a noun for arrogant? Arrogantist?
I don't know.
I already went to BFA.com to see if someone registered it. They did. It's like for photography.
Oh well.
It means something to the world. You're too late. Maybe BFAX.
BFAX. Okay, what about Owen Lin? We did this back in high school when we were walking on the snowy ground of our on our way back to the dorm. What does BFA mean?
I plead the fifth.
Hey, wait. Where are you currently?
What?
I need a geographic location because you might not have those rights.
He's in Taiwan.
Hawaii.
Hi, I'm Owen. I'm going to use the rights of a constitution of another land.
All right.
We made this up, right? Which is... I'd rather not say.
Okay, let me say something. BFA stands for brute force astrophysics research. All right, that's BFAR. Anyways, have a beautiful day. Whomever watched till the end, you're a legend. Have fun. Let's do astrophysics. Let's get to work. Let's
3, 2, 1. Space truckers.
Space truckers. Oh.
Let's go.